talk. I think so, Karen.
Good morning and welcome to Garden with Peggy. But we'll find me. And it was a terrible week. The cold just was. It did all the damage I was worried that it was going to do. So that was sort of depressing. And we are having trouble finding me. I know I'm right here. And also wanted to remind everybody next week is Easter. And yes, I will be doing my show for Easter. That's the rest are buds. So that way you'll get to enjoy them inside for as long as possible. And when you bring them home, you want to make sure that you don't put them in blazing sun. You put them in kind of or on a coffee table, but not in direct sun, at least initially, while they're in bloom, because the more sun they get and the heat that they get, the faster the flowers will deteriorate. So you make sure that you and that you wrap them, especially in this very cold weather that we've been having. You want to make sure that when you transport them from greenhouse to car, car to house, house to car to bring as a gift, you want to make sure that they are protected. So we have Mr. Alfie here, and he's wearing his spring bandana, looking very spiffy. It was the first day of spring. It was. And yes, I did get my free Rita's Ice, which they give away on the first day of spring every year. So that was great fun. But it's been brutally cold. And there's a lot of damage that we will talk about. But let's give the phone number. It's 888-399-7344. And we have a bunch of open lines. So if you want to call today, that would be great. And there is a lot going on in the garden for sure. So let's go to this week at Tiny Farm and we'll talk about some of these things. And good morning to Rob. Thank you for chatting with me yet again. It's always fun. All right. So the daffodils are now in abundance. These are all the daffodils that were planted by the previous owner and Mrs. Lang, who owned this property and was an avid gardener for 75 years. And she planted daffodils everywhere. And now I have added to this bed, but the ones that I've added are not showing yet. I added pink ones, and the pink ones tend to come up later. So they're not showing yet, but that is the bulk of the daffodils in one place, the swath there. They are mixed in with daylilies, which, kind of camouflage them later on as the foliage begins to die. But there's no doubt about it that having this many daffodils when it comes time to cleaning them up is a bit of work, because those flowers have to be plucked off one at a time. So that's quite the challenge. All right. Next. I wanted to share this with you. This is something that I discovered when Danny and Dave and Liz and Joe and I went out to this outrageous Asian restaurant in Edison. And these are called rice cakes. And they're not the crunchy ones that we're familiar with that you get at the supermarket. They're gluten-free. They have a texture a little chewier than tofu and are just an amazing substitute for pasta. And I cooked them with a little sausage meat and some carrots and peas and onions and a little soy sauce. And it was just tremendous. So if you're looking for something gluten-free, it's vegan. Not everybody wants vegan, but sometimes you need to serve a vegan dish and you might want to look for these. And they're like ovals about, maybe 1.5 inches by 1 inch. and they come frozen, and you just throw them in a bowl of water for 20 minutes so they defrost, and then you can stir fry them or you can boil them. And I just wanted to share that with you because I found that to be an amazing discovery. All right, so one day this week we went into New York City, and in order to celebrate my husband's birthday, which was in February, I bought him tickets, and we went to see the show Back to the Future, which was just phenomenal. It was really so well done, and the special effects were amazing, and the acting was great, and the humor had us laughing, and the music was equally wonderful. And so much so that during the break they played our song from our wedding, and we were dancing in the aisle to the song. So that was kind of fun. But the reason I'm showing you this is that the pictures are of the restaurant that we went to, and I thought it was pretty amazing that they used this to decorate the tables, that they just used individual leaves. Can we make that bigger? Because I really need to be able to show. Yes. So the restaurant had lovely ambiance. It was called the Blue Dog, which of course made me happy. And you can see on the tables, they're tall vases with like a bulbous base, and they are decorated with just an individual monstera leaf. And I thought that that was really spectacular. Now, the monstera leaves are not always so easy to get a hold of, and they can be expensive, but I thought you could get a similar look with elephant ears. And elephant ears, I have several pots of them doing well in the greenhouse, and people have them in the yard, and that you could do something similar. And I also thought it might look really cool if you put like a single flower in, like a giant zinnia, like one red zinnia, really a tall red zinnia, or an allium, a Sputniki allium would look really fun. And also, if you want to get a little bit more on the weird side, those strange milkweeds that are called hairy balls, they would look fun in there as well. So, but even just the single leaf. So I thought that was kind of a interesting application of, using something in a different way. All right, next. All right, so my friend Liz sent me this picture, and she said, what is this? She says, like, looks like forsythia, but it's very droopy. And I said, well, send me a picture of the bush, because it wasn't a lot to go on. And there is the bush. And I was able to recognize it. It is a winter blooming jasmine. I have a teeny tiny one that, in fact, I need to move because it's not in a very good spot. So it usually blooms in January. Actually, it blooms throughout the winter on warm days. And then when the weather gets warmer, it will do a kind of a big burst of bloom now. And this is it, Jasminium nudiflorum. And it does have flowers that look like forsythia, but they are much smaller. And the growth habit, is not that different from a forsythia, except that most people prune their forsythias and then they look ridiculous, and they don't look like that at all. But when forsythias are allowed to grow naturally, they do arch down and are not that different. But the flowers on forsythia tend to be bigger, and they tend to be more all at once, whereas these winter blooming jasmine will bloom throughout the winter on warm days and then give us a bigger show around this time of year. They don't make the greatest cut flowers, but if they bloom in January, we are not going to argue with them. Okay, next. Oh, I don't know what this is, and we definitely need to make this bigger. This is, I'm trying to figure out what it is. It was all along the train, and I have a theory as to what it might be, but I wondered, I saw it in multiple places, and my guess is that it's a Bradford calorie pear, because they have been considered invasive and the flowers look similar. Of course, I was only taking this picture from a moving train, so I wasn't able to get, a good picture or a close-up picture. but it was blooming, you know. Can't we clean up the train tracks? I mean, do we have to look out at all this garbage and trash and brush and debris? I mean, they can't clean along the train tracks. There was this one stretch where it would have been a beautiful beach along water. Wasn't wide. It wasn't, you know, big enough for people to go to the beach and lay on the sand, but it would have been a perfect place to go for a stroll or a bike ride, or if there was a path, you could go on a bike or take your dogs for a walk. And it was just strewn with trash. So anyway, this was at least making an effort to bloom. And I think that's what it is. Anybody have any suggestions or add to that would be appreciated. If anybody has any other suggestions as to what that could be. Oh, this broke my heart. This broke my heart. I'm sorry, but this is the result of having a very warm early spring followed by a very cold snap. This is a magnolia, and it's brown. It was in full bloom and it got frosted, and now it's brown. And that happens every so often. Magnolias are magnificent when they're beautiful, and when they're brown, they are just awful. And I have one deciduous magnolia here. It's called Susan. It's a smaller dwarf variety, and it blooms much later. And I chose that variety. One of the contributing factors to choosing that variety was the fact that it blooms late and will avoid this. So mine will bloom later. It's definitely, you know, showing signs of waking up, but the flowers haven't started to emerge yet. So it's safe. But yeah, this is a really ugly brown flowering magnolia. I think that's the last one, isn't it? Is there another one? Oh, no, there's a couple more. All right, this is from Danny Girl. And she sent me these pictures. This is her car, and she got a new license plate, and she got it personalized. And that is my license plate. The license plate with the tomatoes on there, and the running horse and the corn and the cranberries. I contributed to the writing of the legislation for that license plate, and it is to support New Jersey agriculture. And it kind of interesting, we took a unique approach to it. There is no renewal fee. It is a one-time thing that you pay $20 and you never pay a renewal fee to get it personalized like this. They're called specialty plates, and then you can have a personalized specialty plate. So you can have the, you know, conservation one, or the one that's a tribute to fallen policemen. And each one of those is a specialty plate. And if you want it personalized, then it becomes a personalized specialty plate. Most of them are $50, and then you have to pay a renewal fee every year. Ours is $20 to get it personalized. It's $70. You can go to motor vehicles and they have lists of all the plates that are available. But again, there's no renewal fee. So she traded in her old blue and yellow license plate that said Busy Bee for a support agriculture Busy Bee plate. And it was a good opportunity for me to remind everybody that these are still out there. And the reason it was set up the way we set it up was we weren't trying to raise money for any particular fund. We wanted to raise awareness because we are the Garden State. And that's what it says. It says the Garden State with tomatoes and corn and peaches and a running horse and a farm scene in the background. And it's kind of a pretty plate. So, okay, next. Was that the end? That's the end? All right, well, let me give the phone number again. It's 888-399-7344. And it's interesting, the background that we have today of the backyard is the plant exchange. And thought you would appreciate that, and want to remind everybody that the plant exchange is May 25th. And it's the Memorial Day weekend. And it was the same weekend last year. And we had beautiful weather. The 2 years before that was 2 weeks earlier. And we had disastrous weather 2 years in a row. So we're trying to avoid that. And again, it's a Saturday. It's 12 to about 4 when everybody leaves. And the way it works is people are asked to bring one food item to share. So like finger food, we're not looking for plates and silverware and that sort of thing. So things that people can pick up and eat. I've done hot dogs, I think, every year, easy peasy, and people can just pick up a hot dog. I think I cut them in half. But I did hot dogs. And so we're looking for things that people can eat pretty easily. Maybe wings, dessert kinds of things, cookies, cupcakes, fruit. You could just bring if you bring grapes, I ask that you cut them in bunches so that people don't pick at the grapes and leave them all ugly and gross looking, which I can't stand. So you cut them in little bunches and then people take a bunch and the grapes that are left behind. My husband's shaking his head. Why are you shaking your head? You think I'm too particular about my grapes? I like my grapes to not look disgusting and pick it over. So when I was a little girl, my mother had a special pair of scissors that were called grape shears. I don't have them anymore, but they had grapes all over them, and she would use them to cut off little bunches of grapes. My mother had an elegance to her and was refined, and that's how she served her grapes, and that's how we're going to serve our grapes. But grapes are a good thing to bring, or a bag of nice apples, or bananas, or just things that people can pick up and eat. Last year we had a really good balance. The year before that we had enough dessert to start our own bakery. And just way too much and not a nice balance. So I'm asking not everybody to bring dessert, but certainly some desserts are fine. So May 25th. So who do we have on the line? Oh, it's Bob from Piscataway. Hey, Bob, how you doing? How you doing?
Hi, Peggy.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Well, I'm good, but I mean, a lot of damage this week from the cold.
Yeah, my neighbor across the street has a beautiful magnolia tree that is now all brown. So sad.
It's heartbreaking. You know what I lost? I'm just sick about it. I didn't have any of those magnolias, but last week I showed pictures of my magnificent Cornell pink azaleas.
Right.
Completely fried. They're not brown. They didn't turn brown like the magnolias did. They just got completely limp and soggy, like frozen and then defrosted kind of thing. And yeah, and they're one of my favorites. They're so vivid. The color is so vivid, and yeah, they look terrible. I'm not sure what's going to happen, because normal progression and the aging of leaves and flowers is they develop a layer as the leaf or flower ages that allows them to fall off naturally. But if that is not allowed to develop, they might just hang on there unless I remove them. So we'll just have to see. Have you ever noticed sometimes if we get a really early frost in the fall that the leaves will hang on the tree until spring?
Oh, yeah.
Right. Well, that's the same thing, because they got frosted before they developed the layer, the absorption layer. And so they weren't alive enough to continue to develop that. So then they just hang on and they don't come off until the new foliage comes out in the spring and pushes them off. So I don't know if maybe when the foliage comes out, it'll push them off if they don't fall off. I don't know, but they look so sad and droopy. So I was afraid of this. So what else is going on in your yard?
The reason I'm calling today is more like a public service. In today's Star Ledger, they have an article on libraries. And at the Metuchen Library, they have a seed catalog, which is a seed library which allows anyone to take up to 5 packets per visit and grow their own vegetables, plants, and flowers. No return is necessary. So you could get free seeds at the Metuchen Library. I know that residents of Metuchen have library cards, so they don't have to pay for them. If you're not a resident and you want to join their library, the cost is $75. However, they are part of the LMAC extension, which is a lending extension. For example, in Piscataway, I've gotten books from the East Brunswick Library. sent over to Piscataway because Piscataway didn't have that particular book.
Yeah, it's a
So
county.
you
It's a
can,
countywide
you
program.
may be able to go there and get seed that way. Also, with South Plainfield's library, when I went there to take out some audio CDs, I was able to join the South Plainfield Library for free because I'm a member of the Piscataway Library, as long as you have an active library card. So there's free seeds out there, and they said this year they actually even have some redbud seeds for the first time. So.
Oh, wow. I wonder where they get their seeds,
Yeah.
or where they get the financing to pay for their seeds. That's kind of.
Let's see. I think they're just donations. I wonder if they're taking seeds, like, for example, if I only used 4 tomato seeds out of my packet and I don't want to keep the packet, I guess I can give it to them.
Yeah.
Or if they get donations from maybe a large store, something along those lines.
Well, I think it's a great idea.
But it's pretty cool. It's a neat thing. And, if you're lucky enough to live in Metuchen, you can just scoot over there today at 1:00 and get what you want. So,
well, it is a lovely little town. So that's for sure. We have a lot of friends. Michael from Metuchen, he is a good friend. And of course, Danny from Metuchen and Jack from Metuchen, although we haven't heard from him. I do need to go visit him. But yes, so we have a fair number of gardeners that participate in the Garden with Peggy from Metuchen. So maybe they can head over there. So that's a great public service announcement. So thank you for sharing. Anything else? Oh, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Did your curly willow, your corkscrew willow, did that leaf out?
Yeah, I looked at it yesterday from the deck. Well, actually Friday from the deck, and it looks like there's leaves on there. And it also looks like it is getting taller. It is growing, so that's kind of neat. I'm looking forward to this year.
Yeah, I did take off a couple of branches that were not. They seemed to be dead, but it was multi-trunked, so it was no loss. And what the top of it was really full and lush, so it's doing very well. So I'm excited. And we did move the clethra that was behind it, just because I got the willow after I planted the clethra, and the willow being a truly full-size tree, I had limited places for it. So I put it in front of the clethra and then moved the clethra a couple weeks ago. But everything seems to be doing well. So that's good. So I'm glad your willow, because we picked that out together. That was a fun day.
I'm excited about it. I do have a question about a lilac bush. I know you're supposed to try to remove the old growth, which is really the really thick, large branches growing in the middle that are kind of decayed. On one of the lilac bushes I have, it's kind of skimpy. I have saved it where I brought it back to where it's growing, but one of those really large, older branches is still getting buds on top. Should I still take it out?
Well, if it's getting flower buds or leaf buds?
Leaf buds.
Okay, but it's not getting flower buds.
I didn't look at it close enough. I'm not sure. It's just a real long branch that's about 7 foot tall. And then on the top of it, there's, maybe 20 little leaf buds or whatever coming out. So there's no other stems growing off of it or any other life off of it. Should I just leave it there since it is getting life?
Well, here's the thing. The people generally grow lilacs for the flowers, and the branches that flower are not the young shoots nor the very old wood. It's the intermediate aged growth. So if you have that very old branch and it's not producing any flowers, but energy is going into it, then you might want to remove it. And you might want to wait until after it finishes blooming to make sure that it's not producing flowers. So the idea is to take out, 1 or 2 of the really old wood, and then thin the number of new suckers if there's too many, to 3 or 4, however many it needs. If it's a little skimpy, you'll leave 4. If the plant is not skimpy, then maybe you only want to leave 1 or 2. And that way you have a constant renewal of shoots that will be intermediate in age in every year. So that's the idea, is to keep the intermediate ones coming. As they get too old, you remove them, and as it suckers, then you leave enough to replace the ones that you've removed or fill in if it needs more. But that's the idea, to keep a constant flow of intermediate aged branches.
So if this branch doesn't flower, a month from now or so, it would be best then to just remove it, because it seems like it's the oldest part of that particular plant.
That's probably what I would do. If it's not blooming and it's the oldest part, then that would be an ideal branch to remove. So
I mean, these plants are decades old. I've lived here my entire life, and they've been here as long as I know. So
they live a really long
50
time.
years old or so.
Have you ever been to Buchlow Park in New Brunswick? There's
yes,
and there's the Buchlow Mansion there. There is a hedge of lilacs that have been there from the time that the mansion was built. I don't know how old that was, but I believe I haven't seen them in recent years, but when I was in New Brunswick, they were there and they were still blooming every year. And the guy who took care of the park was in charge of the Parks Department. I think his name was Jim Campbell. He was a really nice guy, and he took good care of them. And he, pruned them properly, and they bloomed prolifically every year. So, they can live a really long time. That's the original species of lilac. That's not the same as the fancy hybrids. They may not be as long lived, but the original lilac colored lilac bush that is grown, pretty much on its own roots most of the time, is very hardy and will last. I can't say forever, but my lifetime, your lifetime, which is a pretty long time. So they're kind of amazing bushes. But when you start to get to the fancy ones, not so much. But the standard.
What are the white lilacs then? Are they still the same as the older ones? Because this is the one that I'm trying to cut the branch on, is a white lilac.
No way to know looking at it. And I'll be honest, I don't know if originally they came in white. My guess is there's certainly a possibility that they came in white and purple. All the other shades of the pink ones and the deep purple ones, I would say there's not a very good chance that those are going to be super long lived, but I would say maybe a white one could be the same as the original lilac colored ones. But I don't know.
Because we have 2 purples and 2 whites. The purples are flourishing. They're gigantic. They're 10 feet in circumference, where the white ones are they're fragile, and they don't grow very well. And those are the ones that I'm trying to save. But they never really took off. Ever since I was young, they never really took off.
So based on that, I'm going to say they're not the same.
Okay.
They're a different, a completely different variety, maybe, developed years later, a hybrid, right. Because they're, if it's not doing as well, again, all the ones that I know that are really old are the purple ones, the lilac colored ones, the ones lavender. I mean, I'm wearing lavender, that kind of, definitely a shade of purple, but more pastel. And called lilac, I guess, after the bush, that color. All the ones that I know that are ancient are that color. So I can't say for certain that there aren't ancient white ones, but as you just stated, they're not doing as well. So my guess would be they're a little different.
Yep. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Peggy. I just wanted to share that information with your audience.
Okay. One more time. The Metuchen Library, if you have the
Metuchen Library,
yes, has seeds to give away. And you may
up to
have
5
to have
packets a visit.
You may have to have a library card, but
well, you will need a library card. of some form or another. You will need, if you're in Metuchen, you need a library card to take items out. But I know that the LMAC program allows other Middlesex County residents from other towns, as long as they have a standing library card, to take items out of any library that's in that program, of which Metuchen is one of those libraries. So I guess it pertains to this also.
The Middlesex County library system is very efficient, and you can get books. They will ship them very quickly from one library to the other to loan them. Yes. It's a very good system. So that's so if you're a member of that, then it seems to work to get the seeds. So that's great. So thanks for sharing that information. As always, it's a pleasure.
Oh, you're welcome. Have a good week.
You too. Bye-bye now. Okay.
Bye-bye.
Who we've got? Oh, yay! It's Anne Marie. Are you with us, Anne Marie?
We are home.
Yay! You were gone a long time. I missed you. So how are things?
Good. We came home to the entire, along the front porch, every daffodil and hyacinth that could possibly bloom is blooming. There are hundreds of daffodils, large ones, small ones, narcissus, you name it. I'm a happy lady. So
well,
that was good.
Beautiful,
but I have to tell you, I just ran across the street to check out my neighbor's magnolia, and he still has large pink buds. They did not open and did not frost.
Well, good for him. The ones that are open are done for. So his is a little bit later.
But you were, even with your forsythia, you were maybe a week and a half ahead of Lonely Little Milltown. So we're not that far north of you, but I guess there was a difference. Well, although Bob said his is ruined and he's more in my neighborhood than yours.
Well, part of the difference is that we're close to the coast, more than north-south. But it's definitely, if you look at any zone map, along the coast is one zone warmer than when you move inland. So that would be my guess as to the difference. But good for you, because the brown ones on the street where I took that picture, there was at least two that looked like that in front of. It's an older neighborhood of small houses, and both of these were in the front yard that I saw. I only stopped to photograph one, but big, huge trees that towered over the houses and completely brown. Oh, it was just heartbreaking. It was probably the most beautiful thing they have in their yard. And well, the leaves will come out. But,
ugly.
Yeah, ugly. Really, really ugly. You know, when I was a little girl, my parents were not gardeners. Did you know that? I mean, not at all. My grandfather was an avid gardener, but my parents, nothing. My mother killed every plant she ever got, and my father knew a tremendous amount about produce, but so we never had, and he was in the produce business, so we never had to have a vegetable garden. And my mother had 8 kids, so she didn't really have time to play in the garden. So I didn't learn anything about plants really until I was growing an adult, really. But as a very small child, every year my mother would take me to visit one of her relatives, and I don't even know who it was. I remember there was a teenage girl there. But I would go to this house and I would say, oh, you have that tree with the really soft petals. And I got really lucky because 2 years in a row we went when the magnolia was in bloom. And I explained that I had gone out as a very small child and picked up the petals off the ground and rubbed them on my face, that they were so silky and soft. And I told them, I said, last time when I was here, I did that. And they said, it's blooming now. So I went out and there it was again, 2 years in a row. And that was when I fell in love with magnolias as a very small child. I didn't even know what they were, but I just thought that they were so silky and beautiful, and they brought me joy as a small child. And that was before I knew that this could happen to them and they could turn butt ugly overnight. So, but that's my earliest memory of magnolias. A good one.
See, that's a good happy childhood thing.
It is. You got to treasure those. So
listen, Bob was talking about lilacs. Can you still go into the Rutgers Gardens off Riders Lane at Route 1?
Oh, sure.
because they have lots of lilacs, all kinds, and they also have that beautiful azalea garden. And we haven't been there for a very long time, weather permitting or whatever the reason was. I didn't get to see them, but I was just thinking about them as he was talking about old lilacs.
Well, yes, and the azalea garden is spectacular, and they have quite a few amazing dogwoods because Dr. Elwyn Orton did research on dogwoods for 25 years, and he developed the Rutgers series of dogwoods that are actually a hybrid between our native dogwood and the Kusa dogwood, and he was developing them. So that they would be resistant to, because Kusa dogwoods are resistant to the problems that are prevailing on our native dogwood that seem to be, it's called dogwood decline. It's not even a specific disease. It's just that it's believed that the dogwoods that are in the woods are subject to a tremendous amount of pollution, and then they get weak as a result of the air pollution. And then they become subject to a wide range of diseases that kill them. So it's not a specific disease. It's sort of like their immune system is shot, so something comes along and does them in. So he did all this research and developed 6 different hybrid varieties called the Rutgers series. So there's a lot of those trees. So it's magnificent when they come into bloom. Now, last year, I made a terrible mistake. I got the timing wrong. They moved the date. I don't remember if they moved it earlier or later for the plant sale, but I missed it. I didn't know when it was going to be, and I found out last minute, and I got there, I guess, on Sunday. And because I was still doing my show in, where was that?
New Brunswick.
Yeah, wherever it was, I was doing the show. So after the show, I went down there and they had already closed. So
I think it's Saturday. It's Mother's Day weekend usually.
Yes, but it wasn't last year. They moved it for some reason. I don't remember why. So we need to find out what they're doing specifically this year so that we can go properly. And you do have to call, and I think you're supposed to call ahead and register. But in any event, we need to find that out. So, I see Tommy typing on his computer. We may know that in a minute or two. So, anything else exciting going on? Anne Marie?
Yes, what?
Anything else exciting going on?
No, I did lose a number of my house plants, but sadly, my passion plant, which was so beautiful, that's from the mother plant from Nancy from our very first plant exchange, I believe. So I am hopeful that the one rooting will yield me another tree, but that one even bloomed in the house in November and December twice. So
that's
I
a
don't know.
disappointment.
I might be another 3 years till I see a flower.
Now, I have some exciting news for you. Are you ready?
You do?
I do.
Tell me.
I do.
I'm going to tell everybody. It's not a secret, right?
No, it's not a secret, but I haven't said it on the air before today. So, it's news.
Okay.
Remember you gave me those 2 popcorn plants?
Yes.
And they are wicked ugly right now. Because they're lost, they're like palm trees, very long stems, and then all the foliage at the top. One poor thing, the puppy ripped it out of the pot, and I found it on the ground naked. So I repotted it, and that one looks even worse. It's alive, it's coming back, but it looks even worse. And we learned over the winter that in a warmer climate they can be considered perennial, which was why I started to get excited about trying to overwinter them, that they can overwinter in containers in an indoor environment like the greenhouse. But the one that didn't get pulled out of the pot, as telephone pole / palm tree as it looks, has 2 flower buds on the top. It's going to bloom in the greenhouse.
Well, that'll be an exciting picture to see.
Yes, it will. I couldn't believe it. 2 little brown buds, as opposed to the green buds of the foliage, are emerging out of the top. So we have been successful in overwintering this. And who knew? I mean, last year, nobody's bloomed. They were so weird. I was able to buy seed, which was good, and I will be starting the seed soon. I think I'm going to do a lot of seed starting this week. But yeah, the popcorn plant's about to bloom in the greenhouse. How cool is that?
Good. This is what I call when I don't know what's going to happen. Somebody goes, "What is it?" Oh, it's my science project.
Yes,
I'm
and that's
doing a little study here.
exactly. So anyway, it's
What you learned? Great. Oh, that's exciting.
that is exciting.
Very good.
Yes, it's
I
definitely
did
exciting.
bring some peas from that pigeon pea tree in Kissimmee.
Oh, all
I
right.
don't
Well,
know.
that's
I'm going
kind
to
of
try to see what
interesting.
happens if it grows. I mean, we surely can't grow the tree because it'll die the first winter it's out there. But I just have to have one more science project, I guess.
Okay, well, my husband is typing, but he left out the date. So let's see. Rutgers RU
Another
Garden Spring Plant Sale, Saturday, May something. What's the date? May 4th. Saturday, May 4th, 12 p.m. You need to buy tickets for a time slot. Oh, they're free. So you just need to sign up for a time slot.
Oh, okay.
So I guess you just go to Rutgers and type in Rutgers plant sale and May 4th. So, well, that'll be a day. That'll be a fun day to go. So maybe I'll pick you up.
Okay.
We'll go together. How does that sound?
Okay, sounds like a plan.
Sounds like a plan. All right. Well, give Uncle Art a hug. I'm glad you're home safe. I'm sorry you came home to yucky cold weather and downpouring rain and floods in the backyard. I'm sorry about all that, but
the
it's going to get
brook
better.
Was a roaring river, and the embankment behind us cut new waterfalls coming off the street that's up in North Brunswick that just flushed down the hill like it was supposed to be there. It was awful. But we don't get water and we don't need flood insurance, so we're happy.
Well, at least the sun is out today, so that's good.
No, it was out yesterday afternoon. We had a sunset.
We
beautiful
didn't.
sunsets
Oh
from the
no,
other side.
it didn't get nice
side.
down here at all.
And we had a sunset. It was insane.
All right. Well, again, I'm really glad that you're
welcome
home.
to New Jersey. You get everything and anything here.
That is absolutely true. You have a great day, and I will talk to you later on in the week.
Take care.
All right. Bye-bye now. All right. Let me give the phone number again, 888-399-7344. And we have open lines. So if you're thinking about calling, now would be a good time. Let's do the planting of potatoes.
Would you want to do one of the videos?
Oh yeah, let's do the rose video. All right, so I've mentioned several times on the air that I've decided that miniature roses do much better in containers in the greenhouse than they do outside. And although filling the greenhouse with roses was not part of my plan, I decided to dig out all the roses, all the miniature roses. They tend to get completely smothered as everything else grows in the garden in the summer. The plants are small and compact, and so I decided that maybe we should just dig them all out. So let's go to the videotape. This little rose has been here for a while, and every summer when everything around it grows, it kind of gets smothered. So it's a miniature rose, which means it grows on its own roots. So it should probably fairly safe. We're going to dig it up, and I'm going to pot it up, and I'm going to keep it in the greenhouse. I actually think it might be two plants. So I'm going to see if I can also separate them and get two pots out of it. You can see there's some dead on it. It gets some dead every summer as a result of being smothered by the other plants. So this is just not a good spot for it. I put it here because I thought it would be nice to see when I got out of the car right here before I went in the house. But okay. All right, that's one. This part's dead. And a little bit. All right, that's two. I'll pot them up and show you what they look like. Okay, so I brought them into the greenhouse, and there were two healthy plants. The pile on the right is everything I cut off them because I really wanted to, since they were going from the ground into pots, I wanted to cut them back and cut off anything that was dead or diseased, or and they keep the best part to pot up. So that's what I did, and this is what they look like. And I put them back outside near the spot where I pulled them out, since that's what they were used to. And they seem to be doing pretty well. They haven't done a lot of growing, but they've been, holding on, looking like this. And I'm hoping that as soon as the weather warms, that they will take off. And again, I really only want one. They are the same, so I really only want one. So if they both do well, then I will have one to give away at the plant exchange. And this is them outside, right next to where they came out of the ground. And, they've been there. I've watered them a couple of times. Obviously, I'm not going to have to water them today. And this is two other ones that I potted up that had been outside, and they're doing quite nicely. So they flowered for me intermittently throughout the winter. So, so that's a good thing. So, let me give the phone number again. We have somebody. Oh, it's Diane from Colonia. Let's go to the phones. Diane, are you with us?
Yes, good. Yes, good morning, Peggy. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Okay. First of all, I want to let their listeners know that in Woodbridge Township at the Fords and Island libraries, they do have seed libraries where people can take, and this is open to the public, free and open to the public. They can take seeds from the library, plant them, and then, if possible, collect several seeds from the plant or any plant, and then donate them back to the seed library.
That's great.
So that's at the Fords and the Island branches.
So I'm wondering now if it's some sort of a countywide program then, if those libraries.
I'm sorry, this is sponsored by the Woodbridge Township Environmental Commission.
Oh, okay. So different organizations are sponsoring them in different places. So that's great. All right. Well, that's good to know. Thanks for sharing that information.
Okay. Now, I called crepe myrtle. Do I cut it down now? Cut it back?
You can.
Because I didn't do anything in the fall.
Well, here's the interesting thing about crepe myrtles is that they bloom on new growth. So that means you can cut it hard in the spring and it will still bloom in this summer.
Okay.
The thing that you got to watch out for.
So now would be the time to do it.
Yes. The harder you cut it back, the longer it'll take to bloom.
Right.
Because it needs to generate new branches before it can generate flowers. So the harder you cut it, the longer it will take to rebloom. You can cut it pretty severely though, and shape it. But I also want to tell you that one of the really cool things about crepe myrtles is the bark, and leaving some branches to get really old and mature because it has what's called an exfoliating bark. The bark peels off and you have interesting patterns underneath. And if you were constantly cutting the oldest growth off, which is the exact opposite of what you'd be doing for a lilac, if you are constantly cutting the oldest growth off, you'll never get to that beautiful stage of a mature looking tree with the interesting patterns on the bark. So keep that in mind.
I see. Okay, primrose. Do they naturalize like daffodils or any bulbs? Because I started out with one or two out front, and now I have total of 4 plants.
Well, they can spread. And there's a lot of different kinds of primrose. Some are hardier than others. And there's many different kinds, actually. It's a pretty diverse group. And they are lovely early spring bloomers.
Yes, they are.
And they can spread for sure. But the thing is that they're not long-lived, not usually. maybe you'll get 2, 3, if you're lucky, 4 years out of them, and then they tend to disappear. I would say this recent cold snap is not in their favor. And the other thing is that sometimes they will bloom in the fall. They'll bloom in the spring, and then they'll bloom again in the fall. When they bloom again in the fall, they almost never come back. Because when they
I've never had a fall bloom, but these have been in the ground for a number of years.
Well, that's great. They may be in a really ideal protected spot. They don't need a lot of sun.
Right.
And so, you can put them in a protected spot, and that's good. But again, if at some year you come out in the next year or two and they're gone, count your blessings.
Don't be surprised.
Yeah, that you had them for as long as they did. They're not considered long-lived.
I see. Okay. Okay, Peggy, that's it for this week. And I just want to wish you and the listeners a happy Easter next week. In case, I don't think I'll be calling, but anyway, Easter is on its way.
Yes,
And
it
hopefully
is.
spring will
And
be back.
I will be doing the show, but I don't, expect a lot of people to be able to call in. They will be busy. I mean, you got to go hunt your Easter eggs and all that. So there are things that people will need to be doing, but thank you, and have a great holiday. And if we don't talk next week, we'll talk the week after.
Okay, thank you again for all your. Oh, and by the way, I love your pendant. Very, very pretty.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I love it too. Thank you. I thought it I usually wear something
And
colored.
it's flowers.
Yes, but I thought it seemed very appropriate. It looks a little bit like lilies, a little bit. So, there you go.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
All right, you have a great day,
definitely.
and thank you for that.
Okay, thank you. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right. Did we finish this week at Tiny Farm? Because I don't remember what happened to the orchid. Did the orchid not show up in those pictures? There was no orchid?
No.
How did I miss that? Because I have this beautiful orchid blooming and I wanted to show it. Okay, so how much time do we have? Oh, not a whole lot of time. Did we do planting potatoes?
You could do potatoes, or you could do the other video.
Which was, we should do the potatoes. We should do the potatoes because now is the time you want to plant the potatoes. We may be able to do both. Okay, so I ordered these potatoes. These they're called blue potatoes. And they're very blue, except they're not blue. They're very colorful, but they're actually very purple, which probably is why I like them. And it's very important that when you plant potatoes, you have eyes. Those are little places where the potatoes grow. And you can see that these are purple eyes. And it's a little disappointed. The potatoes that I got, some of them were rotten. I didn't plant a tremendous number of potatoes, so I had plenty to do the planting that I wanted to do, but you do have to be careful. You don't want to plant rotten potatoes. So, and this is them cut. Now, is that like stunning? I think that's absolutely stunning. I do want to say the potatoes, the blue potatoes or purple potatoes tend to be a little on the smaller side. You don't get gigantic ones, not usually. And you don't want to mash them. That's mashed purple potatoes come out, or blue potatoes come out gray and kind of weird looking. They're great for, potato salad, or, if you just boil them or fry them. But if you try to mash them, they get weird looking. And this is what's the remnants of the Yukon Golds that were from last year. And some of them were too wrinkled to use, but most of them were fine. Obviously, they were sending out shoots, and they were perfectly adequate for planting. And the yellow and the purple together in a potato salad makes a very pretty salad. So, all right. So the bigger pieces of potatoes I did cut in half, and as long as you have eyes on both halves, you can plant them like that. And you can see they're in sort of a valley. And that's how you plant potatoes. And I didn't put in the second row yet in this picture, but I wanted to show you that I did apply fertilizer before I made the furrows. And I did that on both sides. But then I made the furrow on this side and planted the purple potatoes are on the right and the Yukon Golds are on the left. And they're down pretty deep. And then I covered them up and used the hoe to press it down, but you can see there's still a ridge of soil in the middle. And the purpose of that is as they grow, you want to add soil to them and continue to add soil a couple of times as they grow. And then that will give you more potatoes underground. So I watered them in thoroughly. Remember, potatoes have a very high moisture content. You want to keep them well watered. And I did add quite a bit of compost to this bed because my soil up there is so sandy. I don't know why it's as sandy as it is because I've been adding compost for 4 years now, but it's still so sandy. And I dug out 2 more bricks. 2 more bricks. I don't know why there's any bricks left, and a small tree trunk that was about 8 inches down, and I couldn't get that out. I had to get Tommy to help me. But potatoes are in. I did not plant more potatoes this year. I planted in the same size bed. Of course, I rotated my crops. It's a different bed. So I planted half the number of Yukon Golds that I did last year so that I could make room for the purple potatoes. Obviously, I didn't eat all the potatoes that I grew, so I didn't want to increase, but I did want to try the purple ones. So there you have it. Okay, so then the last thing that I do want to show you, remember last week I bought that really interesting tool, which was a hedge pruner. And I've never used a hedge pruner because I prune my hedges or hedge-like bushes by hand because I think they leave bushes looking really ugly. But I bought the hedge pruner to take down the perennial sunflowers. And the perennial sunflowers were a cumbersome task to cut them all down because there's so many of them. And used the hedge pruner and it worked pretty well. But then people called with suggestions for using it on other things. And one suggestion was ornamental grasses, which would have a very similar kind of issue as the perennial sunflowers, tall, reedy things. And I think the hedge pruner would work really well. But then we got the idea, what about things like liriope and the irises, the Siberian irises that are all very grass-like. So let's go to the videotape and we'll see how that worked. Okay, so I showed you this tool last week and we had several discussions about different ways of using it. So we're going to try it on the Siberian iris and see if it helps to cut out last year's old dried up stuff, okay? So we're going to give it a try. Also try the grass shears and see if that works as well. So give me a minute to change. Different kind of blade. It comes with the tool. So we're going to try that and see if this works better or worse. I'd say in this case you could use either one. Not bad. Okay, in reality, yes, you can use either one. But I have to say that for that application, the grass shears gave me a little bit more maneuverability to get in and around rather than that long blade. I think if you were going with something slightly more woody, you'd be restricted to the long blade, which is tougher. It says very clearly to only use it on the grass shears only on grass. So I would definitely, take that into consideration before you make the decision. But again, I bought that last week at Home Depot and it was on sale for $99. It's ordinarily $149. And it comes with the battery, it comes with the charger, and it comes with those 2 blades. And it made getting rid of those Siberian irises a piece of cake. You do have to make sure you use it early enough because I noticed that some of the foliage was coming up, and I did cut it, not enough to make any difference to hurt the plants long term, but you do want to make sure that you get in there early, and I'm sure it would work equally well on the liriope. So the 2 blades come with it, and it was pretty, I never thought I would need one, and I will never use it on hedges ever under any circumstances ever, but it's kind of a cool tool. And I will add that to my list next year for good Christmas presents. So, all right. Well, I think that kind of covers everything, doesn't it? I think we're done. We're up to 11 o'clock. So next week is Easter. Yes, we will be here. And remember, choose carefully when you're picking out your Easter lilies, if you are doing that. And hopefully the weather is it going to warm up? Is it going to? No, it's going to be cold all week. Bummer. If Tommy says it's going to be iffy, but it is officially spring, so we have lots of great things to look forward to. I will be here next week, same time, same place. Until then, have a good one.